My Lord, you set me free. And my Lord, I swear, fight for you.
How's it going, guys? My name is Jeremy.
My name is Gabby.
My name is Damaris.
And I'm Lorena.
And welcome to
Let's Be For Real.
So today we're going to be talking about the story of Abraham and Sarah. We're hitting you with a 2-in-1 combo.
That's right.
So the story of Abraham and Sarah is one of the most important in the Bible because it's a story of faith, waiting, God's promises and miracles. And their journey begins in Genesis 12 and continues through Genesis 25. So God calls Abraham and Sarai, Abram and Sarai. Later in the story, Abram is called Abraham, and his wife is Sarai, which is later Sarah. One day, God called Abram and said, "Leave your country and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation." And that's Genesis 12, verse 1-2. They obeyed, even though they didn't know where they were going. The act of trust is the beginning of their journey of faith. All right. Years later, God made a covenant with Abram. He changed his name to Abraham, meaning father of nations. He changed Sarai's name to Sarah, meaning princess. God promised that Sarah would have a son, even though she was 90 years old and had never had children. Third part is waiting for the promise. Abraham and Sarah waited many years for the promised child, but nothing happened. In their doubt, Sarah gave her servant Hagar to Abraham to have a child. Hagar gave birth to Ishmael, but this was not the child God had promised. Despite their mistake, God still promised. In Genesis 17, verse 19, "Your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac." Fourth part, Sarah laughs at God's promise. That's Genesis 18. When Sarah overheard the angels telling Abraham that she would have a son, she laughed to herself, thinking, "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" But God replied, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" The birth of Isaac, which is in Genesis 21. Just as God promised, Sarah gave birth to Isaac when she was 90 and Abraham was 100 years old. Imagine having parents that old, though. She said, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." Isaac means laughter in Hebrew. Testing Abraham's faith. Later, God tested Abraham by asking him to sacrifice Isaac. Abraham obeyed, but God stopped him at the last moment and provided a ram instead. Yo, imagine like you finally get your son, and God's like, "Yeah, you're gonna have to sacrifice him."
He's gonna die.
No, that's and like Abraham was ready to do it. He was like, "You know what? At this point, yeah, whatever. I already have a son." Like, all right, and then this showed Abraham's deep trust in God. Sarah's death and burial. Genesis 23. Sarah died at 127 years old, and Abraham mourned her deeply. He bought a cave, the cave of Machpelah, to bury her, the first land Abraham owned in Canaan. All right, and here's the legacy of Abraham and Sarah. Abraham is called the father of faith in front of God. Sarah is remembered as a woman of faith in Hebrews 11:11. Through them came the nation of Israel and eventually Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's a lot to unpack.
It's a lot to unpack, but I think...
Which you did a really good job hitting the main points of the story.
Yeah, I think we can start, obviously, when...
In between... So, all right, let me start off with the Hagar versus Sarah beef.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, basically, obviously, because of Sarah's age... she was around the age where like they stopped having kids.
She was steady.
Steady, right? Yeah, but
I think she had the menopause already.
Menopause already. She could not have kids.
Yeah.
So basically, her whole thing was like, "All right, I have a servant, and she could have kids. So let me just give my servant to my man, and they can make a baby."
Wow. Heck no.
Because she did not believe that she
God
would create a baby. So boom. Hagar and Abraham created a baby, which was Ishmael, which is his first son. From there was like a planted beef between Hagar and Sarah, in which she was like, Hagar literally felt like she was better than Sarai, or Sarah, because she was able to have babies and give Abraham, but she couldn't. That's when Sarah was like, oh, really? Okay. Yeah, you're still my servant, and basically just cussed out Hagar, and Hagar ran away. And then God spoke to Hagar and was like, you're still Sarah's servant. So I want you to go back over there and learn your place. Like, okay, you have a son with Abraham, but yeah. So then she came back, and then that's when God spoke to, I believe it was, he spoke to Sarah and was like, you're gonna have a son, believe it or not. You can laugh, whatever, but you're gonna have a son, and you're gonna name him Isaac. And from him, he's going to be where everything starts. I think he said he's gonna be a ruler, this and that. And then same way with Ishmael, he's gonna also have lands as well.
Yes. One thing I will say, like, I agree. Like Hagar's treatment. So I actually found the direct thing here. It's Genesis 16:4, and it says, so Abram had sexual relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. But when she was pregnant, like you were saying, she began to treat her mistress Sarai with contempt. Then Sarai said to Abram, "This is all your fault." I'm not gonna lie, bro.
Okay, but hold on.
Like
Sarai
listen,
was the one who said
exactly. Like obviously I disagree with Hagar, being like she should not have been treating Sarai with contempt. Like obviously she's still her master, right? Yeah. And she's still a servant, so she needs to respect Sarai, obviously, right? But at the same time, bro, how is Sarai going to turn around, come to Abraham, and be like,
bro, it's your fault.
It's your fault. Like, no.
You should have never agreed to what I said. So that's like
exactly
that's gaslighting.
Exactly. No, like it's crazy. It's crazy because how is she gonna turn around when it was her idea? Like, first of all, it's her fault for not trusting in God, because God's been telling her like, listen, you're just gonna have to wait. I'm gonna bless you. Just wait. She'll be here like, that's not gonna happen. Right. I'm too old. I can't have no kids. So like, let me start scheming. You saying you're serving a seat with your man. Don't get mad now that she acting like this. Like, obviously, again, I don't agree with Hagar acting that way. I do not. But Sarai cannot turn around and be like, this is your fault, Abraham. Can you imagine?
This is all your fault. Why did you say yes?
Abraham was like, what?
He's like, why are you getting mad at me for it? I ain't do nothing. This is your fault.
You said to do the deed and I did it.
You said her to me.
One thing that I wanted to point out, that while I was reading it last night with Miriam, we were just like discussing it and just like exactly how you guys are acting. We're like, why did Sarai just out of nowhere say, well, this is your fault. Clearly this is your fault, when she was the one that made that suggestion. But if we go back to the promise that first God made the promise with Abram. He didn't say, if we go back, oh my gosh, I didn't highlight anything, but when we go back, Abram told, and God told Abram, through you, you're going to have many descendants. He didn't say through you and Sarai. So what I'm thinking is, because Sarah says, Sarai said, the Lord has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have children through her. So I'm thinking like maybe in her eyes, like, oh, God gave the promise and told Abram, through you will have many descendants. Okay, well, maybe it's not going to be through me. Maybe it's going to be, maybe let's make it work.
Right.
She tried to do God's work though. Like she was like, okay, I'm going to, like, instead of praying for something and waiting on God's time, it's like us saying, like, you know what, God, I got this. I think I know where you're trying to go. I see you, so I'm gonna try to move some things and make it happen.
I'm gonna try and speed up the plan a little faster, do it my way.
So I know, like, she was wrong in doing that, but I'm just thinking, like, maybe that was her perspective. Like, maybe, the promise was given to Abram, and she's like, okay, well, it's through him, so let's make it happen through my servant.
Yeah. And sometimes we do that to ourselves, where we self-sabotage, in which we're like, oh, like, you have called other people to do something for you, but I'm not capable of doing, or like comparing ourselves to other people who have received blessings and saying, I don't have my blessing, I don't have my calling. Maybe I'm not meant to do anything. Maybe I'm just meant to be here. So we just self-sabotage ourselves. So,
Yeah.
Because even when later on, when God specifically spoke to her and said,
laughed.
"You're gonna have it," and she laughed, and he was like, "Did you just laugh?" She's
Yo.
like, "No, I didn't laugh."
no, I don't. What are you talking about?
What are you?
It was just a cough.
But then Abraham laughed as well. But Abraham laughed out of joy, and she laughed out of disbelief. So out of not believing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I also like I love the way that the story ends because, you know, going back to how you were talking about it, like what ends up happening after, you know, because obviously Hagar, or actually I should say Sarai, she's like, all right, bet you're going to be like this. Here's what's going to happen. So obviously Sarai starts cussing her out. And obviously Hagar runs away, whatever. But I really like that the Lord, even though, you know, even through everything that happened, like the Lord still had, you know, a plan with what happened with Hagar, right? And so through Hagar running away and everything, like it says here in verses 7, the angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness along the road to Shur. The angel said to her, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from? And where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress, Sarai, she replied. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. So first of all, God's like, he was in the wrong, go back, submit to her authority. And then he's like, and the angel also said, you are now pregnant and will give birth to our son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears. For the Lord hears your cry of distress. The son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. But God had, I'm not going to keep reading, but God had a plan for her. I think there's another time also. Doesn't she like run away again and she tries to leave the baby?
No, she doesn't run away. This time, what happened was that Ishmael started treating Isaac incorrectly. Yeah. And so Sarah was like, look at what your son to Abraham. Look at what your son is doing. Kick him out. And so then Abraham actually wakes up in the morning. I noted, and he made breakfast he made food for them. He filled up a jug of water and strapped it onto Hagar's back and sent them away. So I feel like that, like the first time that Sarai, or the first time that Hagar left, like, or the first time when Sarai said to Abram, like, this is your fault. Abram says, go do what you want with the servant.
That's
like,
right.
It's out of my hands.
That's
He
out of
didn't
my
take
hands.
accountability
I ain't
at
do
all.
nothing.
But
It
then
was
the
like,
second-
Shadi, I didn't even want her. I just wanted you.
Yeah, and then, and he just sends her away with knowing that she's pregnant, right? Yeah. And I was like Miriam pointed out, oh, but did he not care that she was pregnant with his son?
Exactly.
Because he kind of just like cleaned his hands of it. Yeah. But then the second time we see that he actually cared for them. Like he woke up in the morning and cooked food for them and packed up the water and gave it to them. And yeah, that was
because he could just been like, get out of here. I don't
so
want
the
you.
second time Hagar was kicked out. Yeah.
No, but I really love that, you know, even through all that, the Lord still had a plan with Hagar and with her son Ishmael. Like, you know, through the whole thing, we know that Ishmael is still able to, I forget, but doesn't Ishmael like become like the descendant of like a
Like
guys, I don't even know, guys, like a
the rest
kingdom.
of,
Yeah.
I thought like, I feel like I'm going to say something wrong.
I don't know the exact thing, but I know that he, like, a lot of people are born through him. That's what's important here.
Yes, there's many descendants. Yeah, well, God also gave, like you mentioned earlier, that these chapters, the story is full of promises, right? So we see a promise that God made to Abram. Then he made a promise to Hagar. Then he made the promise to Sarai. So this book is just full of promises. And we see that when God makes a promise, it completely comes
So he was
true.
descendants. The descendants of Ishmael are described as Arabian people. Some biblical scholars also believe that the area outlined in Genesis as the final destination of Ishmael and his descendants refers to the Arabian Peninsula. Okay. So Isaac was Israel, and then Ishmael was Arabian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's
But
cool.
Lots of promises that God made to each of them and that came true.
Yeah.
And one of the things, like you were mentioning the definition or the meaning of their names, and Abraham meaning the father of nations. And it's funny because God gave him that name before it even happened, before he even had children. And so there was a long period of time, years went by after God gave him that promise of him having to wait. And imagine like when he meets someone in the street and they ask him his name, I'm a father of multitude.
Right.
Can you imagine?
You have
They're
to
like,
understand,
oh, really?
like,
Where are your children?
Yeah.
I don't have any, but that's what I'm called.
right. No, because like you bring up a really good point. Because like, you know, to us, you would just say like our names, but
Yeah.
like in that time specifically, like the name, you know, in Hebrew, like it specifically means something. So like them saying something like that to somebody, like it. Like there's a deeper meaning behind it. It's not just like calling him Abraham and that's just his name or whatever.
Yeah.
There's like the meaning behind that name.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go a little further back to like just, you know, the Genesis. Kind of funny because the book is named Genesis. Sorry.
Yeah.
But like to the start of like Abraham or Abram being called, like think about how much faith he had to have to leave everything behind. Like he left his family to go to somewhere that he had no idea what God was going to do. He had no idea what's going on, and he still left trusting that God was in control. And, you know, we see throughout the entire, you know, book of Genesis, through Abraham's entire story, it's a lot of faith. And I like that you brought up that in Hebrew, you have Sarah also being recognized as one of the heroes of the faith. But, you know, Abraham and Sarah just both like being able to leave everything that they have behind and just trusting God, walk. And like you said, waiting so long for these things that they're not seeing, right? And just trusting that God is in control. Although obviously along the way, there had a little mishaps. They had a little oopsies, you know.
I feel like it just shows that they're human.
Yeah.
Like Abram didn't do the same lie.
Abraham already having baby mama drama.
Well, the time that he lied about Sarai being his
Did he do that
wife,
twice?
He did it twice.
He did it twice. I don't understand, bro.
Like
Like,
he's the patriarch of faith.
Hey.
Like,
but still twice. He was like, all right, we don't have to lie here because
yeah.
they're going to kill me if they find out that you're my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know.
And Sarai would go along with it too. Like, yeah,
She's like-
that's my brother.
Like, yep, that's
I always wanted
Actually,
a brother.
he's just like you. Weren't they like 10 years apart? Because he was 100 and she
in
was
age.
90.
Yeah,
About,
she
I
was
think.
10
90,
years
he was
apart.
You know what never mentions how they met or where they got, like how they got
I mean,
married. It doesn't mention it. It just says the father, Terah, of Abram was named Terah, and he had a son named Abraham, and Abraham had a wife named Sarai, and then that's it. That's where their story starts. But it never mentions how they met.
I mean, we know.
What did he do for the rest of his life? Like
Huh?
before that?
Yeah, his
Exactly.
story started literally when he was like 90 something.
Yeah, it started late.
I mean, we know. Here it is.
Are you looking for it?
That means
Yeah, I'm
God
looking
has
for
a plan for
specific.
you
It's
at
in
whatever age you
chapter
are.
11,
Period.
verse
Clock it, queen.
31. No. Verse 28 is when it first mentions Abram.
Okay. So, I mean, how they met is not that crazy. Also, okay, it's a little weird, kind of. Not really.
What?
But Genesis 20:11. This is when, actually, 28. This was like the second time or the first time when Abraham gets caught in the lie, saying that, oh, like, she's my sister or whatever. Or like, whatever. Abimelech got up early the next morning and quickly called all his servants together. When he told them what had happened, his men were terrified. Then Abimelech called for Abraham. What have you done to us? He demanded. What crime have I committed that deserves treatment like this? Make it me and my kingdom guilty of this great sin. No one should ever do what you have done. Whatever possessed you to do such a thing. Abraham replied, I thought this is a godless place. He will want my wife and kill me to get her. And she really is my sister, for we both have the same father.
What?
But different mothers.
brothers.
But different mothers. And I
forgot
married
about
her.
that.
So
They were
you know,
half siblings.
how they met is not that.
I forgot
Guys, you
about
must understand.
that. Yes.
They were
Guys,
half
Guys,
siblings.
look, we gotta understand, guys. At this
They were
time,
half siblings.
yeah, guys, listen. We
I
gotta,
thought he meant like we have the same father, like God.
No, they
Oh,
had the
he-
same father.
no,
Actually,
look, we gotta understand. This was
Different time.
a time when to populate the earth,
Oh God.
certain things.
Well,
Let's move
also-
on. Yeah.
Oh
It was
yeah,
just a
because
different
we were.
culture back then. It wasn't like it.
It wasn't
I-
a sin back then.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't until God established.
And God was like, I don't want that no more, guys.
Yeah.
So,
I asked my dad because he was like, "Oh yeah, they were half siblings." I was like, "What?"
well, as a
I
kid,
was like, "Give me a second."
I'm not gonna lie, as a kid, but just imagine, because like when I was a kid and I read through that, I was like,
Well,
like-
even
Slow
when
your roll.
Abraham told Isaac, his son, to go find a wife, he
Yeah.
said, "Go to my cousin,
at my cousin's house. That's
and
right.
find like your cousin." You know, so
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, so they're
Keep it in the
so
family.
Isaac
stays in the
Isaac
family.
and Rebecca are cousins.
No, but didn't Noah did the same thing? Noah did do the same thing. With
Noah?
his family.
You're talking about
How do you think
he
the
slept
world
with
got?
his
No,
sons.
how do you? No, his son.
well, obviously, yes.
How do you
That's,
think the world got?
well, yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like these things happened because they had to, because God allowed them to happen, right? That was a different
there
time.
weren't a lot
then.
of people in
God
Earth,
was like,
guys.
yeah, I'll let them.
All
I'll
right.
let
He
it
needed
slide.
to And my dad was like, "Oh, there's not genetics. Like the genetics are not exactly the same because they have different moms. It's not that bad."
Thinking back, like as a kid, I remember I was like, "Yo, mom,
like 8,
I have a
yo.
question. Why does it say that?" She's like, "Don't ask me." She's like,
She's like,
"You'll
"I know they're gonna
understand.
think."
You'll understand when you're older." I was like, "Okay," and I just moved on.
I still
It
don't
was just
understand.
normal back then. Now it's not. Now it's a sin. Okay?
Yeah, guys,
It's called
very
incest
clear.
now,
Do
guys.
not. That is
recreate
not okay.
Any activities
Now.
The Bible needs like a do not recreate.
No, because I mean,
Do not
it's
recreate.
it says it like later in the book that God is like, okay, guys, let's cut that out. That's not okay. And also, whenever Moses is reading like the laws,
Ten Commandments.
Ten Commandments, and the other laws, it's a lot, by the way. Like it's a lot of laws. Like, sorry, I can't
So
express
many.
how many.
It's like all of
Legit,
Leviticus and Deuteronomy is just laws.
I got so bored. It's just law after law, but it's a lot. But yeah, like that's just how the chapter. Like, that's not okay, guys.
Let's not.
But all the
Get
laws,
married with
I
her
mean, just a side note,
brother.
but like all the laws, there was meaning to it. Like
Yes.
you know how in one part God's very specific about like if someone has a sore, if someone has some kind of disease, there's a specific ritual that they have to follow, specific days, and we're like, wow, that's crazy. But it's because God is trying to prevent the spread of it. So there was always meaning to every single law that God
There was.
established.
Another quick side note, just on the same
Yeah.
topic, but like I don't know how they did it, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Like they had all those books. They had to constantly be aware of all those laws and to not break them. Thank God we got Jesus. We don't got to worry about following the law because we're saved by grace. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, imagine all the animals that were slaughtered.
Oh yeah.
Constantly slaughtered
Legit.
because the sin was great. There was all those laws.
Yeah.
And they're human. There's
Yeah.
no way without the Holy Spirit within them as well
Wait,
that they were gonna maintain.
After
all those.
sacrificing a lamb, you couldn't eat it.
Well, no. So
Like if you like
They would take-
sacrifice, because they would sacrifice like rams, bulls.
well, actually, if I remember correctly,
Sheep.
the Levites had like
It's
they
enough.
got like specific portions of whatever
Yeah.
was sacrificed, and then everything else was left there to burn for God. So yeah, it was a but again, like the whole topic,
Process.
a lot of slaughtering animals, like crazy. I don't know how, but God was blessing them and allowing them to get that many animals for them to continue, because obviously, or else it
And
would be
even
cooked.
like the poor people who didn't have those animals,
Yeah.
they would have to bring like turtle doves. Like
Yeah.
there was specific requirements of a sacrifice depending on the sin that you committed. And so if you like committed a sin that would require a sacrifice of a lamb and you didn't have a lamb because you were poor, then God would say, okay, in replacement you can give a turtle dove. Like you
Yeah.
can give that instead.
Can you imagine that? Me like, okay, God, I did this. I don't have a lamb. I don't know what to give you.
I got a little dove for
But
you.
I love reading. What's good about reading Leviticus and Deuteronomy, even though it's hard because
Imagine
of
how
all the
poor you gotta be.
laws.
Here, God, I'll offer you an ant.
But the cool thing is, yes, it's hard to read through all those laws because it's very repetitive too.
Yeah.
But it just makes you so grateful and appreciative that
That was me the whole
that
time.
we have the
That he
grace
sent
of Jesus
Jesus.
That was me the
that
whole
came
time.
and just eliminated all of the sacrifice. He was the one and all done sacrifice.
That's right.
Wow, we really strayed away from the topic.
Yeah,
but-
no, but we had to. It's good that we brought that up. But going
Yeah.
back to the topic of Abraham and Sarah, you know, you mentioned this is one of like the key points. But obviously, when God asked Abraham to go and sacrifice I was about to say Ishmael.
Isaac.
Sorry. But wow, like imagine being in Abraham's shoes and you waited this whole time for this son, and God finally, he grants you the son through your wife Sarah. And you're like, okay, well, Lord, thank you. Like everything's cool. And then God's like, sorry, but actually you're gonna have to go and sacrifice him. And to have the courage to be like, Lord, okay, I really don't know, what's going on, Lord. Like I've waited so long for this, and you finally fulfilled the promise, but now you want me to go and sacrifice.
Isaac was when
He was relatively young.
He was it?
baby?
He was a kid.
He was a kid. I think I might say it.
Imagine Isaac's face, like
So actually, that's something that I wanted to talk about. He asked, like, what's going on?
Where's the Leo?
And honestly,
And he said, Abraham
The
said,
Lord will provide.
provide. Don't
But-
worry.
but you gotta be
son.
honest, do you
And
really
we
think-
will come back? That
Yeah.
was a good, Abraham was like, we will come back down. So he told Isaac.
Yeah, he was like,
he
"Where's the
believed,
Liam, guys?"
They will make it back somehow. Maybe he thought God was going to resurrect him again after sacrificing him. I don't know.
That was his act of faith. He was declaring.
he
it.
didn't
I
know.
don't think it says how old he was, right?
I've always pictured him like
He's like
a 7-year-old kid, like
No,
maybe
I always
7,
picture it
8.
too.
yeah.
Abraham just carrying him in his arms.
Yeah.
Like,
Regardless
bro.
of age, though, like, it's crazy that, Abraham was still like, all right, Lord, like, I'm going to trust you and I'm still going to go through with this. And I like that Isaac, like, okay, obviously, Isaac asked his dad, like, where is the sheep to offer? Where's the animal we're going to offer? But I also think we can talk a little bit about how Isaac, because think about it, Isaac was on the altar at some point. So Isaac acknowledged the fact that his dad, like, was about to stab him.
Some people.
And Isaac just stood there. Because think about it. Like, if the Lord stopped Abraham when he had the knife, that means Isaac was already laying down on the altar, preparing for it. So, like, what? What is it?
Oh, she
It says
says
that-
some speculation.
Yeah, it says that he was in the late teens.
Late teens?
Or early 20s.
Okay.
One good thing to point out is that Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders so he can carry it. So if a child man
It's an offering.
but if a child is holding the wood, then they have to be old enough to be able to carry all that
Oh.
wood
Yeah,
up
yeah.
the mountain. So it would make sense, like
That he's not
preteen
like some little
or
kid. Yeah.
yeah.
I can't imagine a little baby carrying the wood. But
A
yeah,
3-year-old.
but like the faith to, like, be like, Lord, I'm just going to trust you. Like, I've waited long, but I know that regardless, even if I do have to sacrifice my son, I know that you will still provide, because again, like the Lord promised Abraham, like, I'm going to give you descendants that it will be as countless as the stars in the sky, like the sand, like they will not be able to count it. And so Abraham was like, I'm sure he had doubts. He's like, how is this going to happen? Like, the one son that I've finally been given is now going to be killed by my own hands. Like, how is it going to happen? But he was so like, Lord, I'm still going to trust you. I'm still going to trust the process, and I'm still going to follow your direction, and I'm going to sacrifice my son if that's what you asked me. And like, he was really going to go through it with it. Like, the fact that an angel had to come down and stop this man's hand, like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like, it's just so respectable, the type of faith that he had. It's I'll be honest, I don't know what I would have done in the same circumstance. I pray that the Lord would give me enough faith to do the same thing, but like, imagine,
That scene had to look cool.
Yeah.
Like mid.
Yeah.
Fire.
Yeah. I wonder how Isaac would feel like, just
Like-
seeing the
Again.
knife coming down, and then at the last second, here Abraham heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Abraham, Abraham," and then
Yeah.
that's what stopped him. But
Yeah.
I wonder if he was crying.
I think-
that's
I
what
think
I
he was
think too. I'm
obedient,
like,
though.
both
He
of them
was
had
just-
to be. I don't know, but
He had to
that's
be
the
really
thing.
obedient. Like,
Isaac, right? That's
Isaac
the
had
thing.
to trust his dad to just lay there and
This should be a
like,
lesson to everybody.
Yeah.
Whatever
Be
you say,
obedient to
Father.
your parents.
No, but that's one thing that we mentioned last night. Like Miriam and I, we're like, how did Isaac just like allow his father to tie him up, lay him on the altar? And I was saying, well, Abraham was obedient to God, and what is it called? But we act like our parents, right? Like whatever we see our parents doing, we do the same, right? And so since Isaac would see that Abraham was so obedient to the Lord, then that means he is also going to be obedient as well, because he's following in the footsteps of his father.
Yeah. But yeah, like the story of Abraham and Sarah is just so cool to me. And yeah, in the end, we end up seeing them, be established as those heroes of the faith. And I think it's just so respectable. And that as Christians, we ought to try and follow their example when it comes to, having faith and trusting God through trials and tribulations. Obviously, like you said, Lorena, it really shows how they're human, like just seeing the story. Because obviously they had the times where they messed up. But ultimately, they were able to trust in God and they were able to see God's plan take fruition. So,
Amen.
yeah. I think that's it for today, though. So we hope that you guys enjoyed the episode and that, you learned something new. If you didn't, it's okay. Just go watch our other episodes. I don't know if I was doing something else, but it's fine. Just go watch our other episodes, guys. But yeah, we'll see you guys next Sunday. Make sure that you hit the like button, guys.
And
I've never said that before.
And comment.
Sure. Leave a comment. Actually, you know what?
If you leave a comment on what topic you want us to touch.
Guys, if you guys want us to talk about something specifically, just leave a comment. Or obviously, if you see us here on Sundays, just be like, yo.
Talk to us. Yes.
Yeah, y'all should talk about this, and we'll try it.
And if you want to join us.
If you want to join us,
If you want to
should
join us, we're all
us.
taking requests.
Yeah.
Just send us a comment saying that you want to join the podcast.
Regardless, though, guys, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. We hope you have a wonderful Sunday and that God continues working in your life. We'll see you next week. Bye.